Hello students, welcome to this tutorial regarding the Longwood Managed Apartment Registration process for the 2016-2017 academic year. First, I just want to give you some background information regarding the registration process. The process will run from February 15th to February 26th. All students planning to participate must create a roommate PIN through the Student Housing Gateway. This must be done prior to the housing registration process. Full occupancy is required to register for an apartment space. The only exception to this policy is during the squatting process at Longwood Village. And that only pertains to the squatting process at Longwood Village. All of the other squatting processes will require full occupancy. All spaces in each apartment must be filled by continuing residential students. That means that the only students you can pull in as roommates during the registration process are students that are currently living on campus right now during the spring semester. You're not able to pull in commuter students or future transfer students as roommates during this process. Housing registration will be conducted each day from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the Student Housing Gateway. Students must use Internet Explorer or Firefox web browsers and enable pop-ups in the web browser. This is very important. The Housing Gateway does not support other web browsers, so you need to make sure that you're using Internet Explorer or Firefox. And you also just need to make sure you enable pop-ups in your web browser. Each group will select a designated roommate who will register the group for an assignment. The designated roommate must have each student's RMS ID and roommate PIN to complete the registration. So we're just asking that you have one person log in for the group to do the registration, and that person we call the designated roommate. They will need to have their roommate's RMS ID number and roommate PIN to pull them in. Any student anytime can create their roommate PIN in the Housing Gateway, and on that form it will also tell you what your RMS ID number is. So it's very important that all students pass that information on to the designated roommate so that they're able to complete the registration process. Those students that do not have enough roommates to fill an apartment to full occupancy can submit the apartment waitlist form, and the RCL office will assign the student to a space at the end of the apartment registration process. So this is very important. If you're signing up for a 4-bedroom apartment, you need to make sure that you have 4 people in your group. If you're signing up for a 2-bedroom apartment, you need to make sure you have 2 people in your group. If you don't have a full group, then you can submit the waitlist form at the end of the process, and the RCL office will assign you to a space. First, I want to talk about squatting registration. This will be conducted February 15th, 16th, and 17th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the Student Housing Gateway. Students that plan to return to the same studio, 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom, or Longwood Village 4-person apartment must register during the designated registration dates. During the squatting process, you just need one person that's returning to the same apartment, and they can pull in whoever they want to be their roommate as long as they're a continuing residential student. What this means is if I live at Lancer Park 201 this year, and my roommate is graduating at the end of this year, I can pull in another student to be my roommate during the squatting process because I'm returning to the same apartment. So just want to make sure that you're aware that you just need one person to be returning to the apartment to actually squat it, as long as you can fill it to full occupancy with continuing residential students. Only Longwood Village residents are eligible to squat the apartment without full occupancy due to the double bedroom, but are encouraged to fill the apartment to full occupancy. Any open spaces within Longwood Village squatted apartment units will be assigned to other students by the RCL office. And it's very important to note that only during the squatting process at Longwood Village is full occupancy not required. Once we move past the squatting dates, during the general selection, if a student wants to sign up to live at Longwood Village, they need to be able to fill the apartment to full occupancy. Only continuing residential students are eligible to live at Lancer Park North and South, the Landings, and Longwood Village. Those students that squat and return to the same bedroom are eligible to participate in summer storage. Information regarding summer storage will be sent to eligible students at the conclusion of the apartment registration process. The Student Aid Lottery. You can submit a lottery application from February 15th to February 17th through the Student Housing Gateway. All lottery submissions must be received by February 17th at 4 p.m. Only continuing residential students with at least 56 completed credits are eligible to submit the lottery application. So this is reserved for just juniors and seniors. Applicants will be notified regarding the lottery results by 12 noon on Thursday, February 18th. And then once they're notified regarding the results, if you're a student that won during the studio lottery, you'll be given instructions on how to log in and register for your lottery space. If you weren't a recipient of the studio lottery, your name will be kept on a wait list should additional studio apartments become available. And then you can make plans at that point to participate in the apartment registration process for the general selection days, which will take place the following week. Senior apartment registration is the first registration day after squatting. Students will register on February 22nd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the Student Housing Gateway. The designated roommate must have earned at least 89 credits at the conclusion of the spring 2016 semester in order to assign self and other residents within the selected apartment unit. So on this date, if you're a student with at least 89 credits, you can log in. And for example, you could be pulling in roommates that are juniors or sophomores, but as long as you're the one logging in and you have 89 or more credits, you can register yourself and your roommates on this designated date. Full occupancy is required at Lancer Park North and South, the Landings, and Longwood Village to register for the apartment unit. As I mentioned before, only continuing residential students are eligible to live at Lancer Park North and South, and Longwood Village. And you must fill the apartment to full occupancy to register for the unit. The next registration date is going to be for juniors, and that is going to be on February 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the Student Housing Gateway. The designated roommate must have earned at least 56 credits at the conclusion of the spring 2016 semester in order to assign self and other residents within the selected apartment unit. Full occupancy is required at Lancer Park North and South, the Landings, and Longwood Village to register for the apartment unit. As I mentioned before, the person logging in must have at least 56 completed credits, but they could be pulling in students with less credits than them on that date. Just the individual logging in must have at least 56 credits. And as I mentioned earlier, only continuing residential students are eligible to live at Lancer Park North and South, and Longwood Village, and you must fill the apartment to full occupancy to register for the unit. The next registration day is our sophomore apartment registration, which will take place on February 24th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the Student Housing Gateway. The designated roommate must have earned at least 25 credits at the conclusion of the spring 2016 semester in order to assign self and other residents within the selected apartment unit. Full occupancy is required at Lancer Park North and South, the Landings, and Longwood Village to register for the apartment unit. Those students that are registering on the sophomore day, the person logging in the Housing Gateway must have at least 25 completed credits, but they could pull in students as roommates that have less than 25 credits as long as they are a continuing residential student. And as I mentioned before, you need to have full occupancy to register, and the process is only for continuing residential students, and you must fill the apartment to full occupancy. The last day during the apartment registration process is the apartment wait list. Any continuing residential student that was unable to register for an apartment space is eligible to submit a wait list application. The wait list application will be available in the Student Housing Gateway on February 26th. When additional space becomes available, RCL will contact applicants. Applications will be rank ordered by completed credit hours. This means that if a senior submits the apartment waitlist application, we're going to look to try and assign them to a space before we go to a junior or a sophomore. And so this is not time sensitive on the 26th to submit your application. The apartment waitlist will be available for about a week before we start making any assignments. Here are some helpful reminders. The C Betterment Longwood Village will remain double occupancy. The housing rates for next year are published on the RCL website. Students should discuss these rates with their family or financial provider prior to the registration process so that you are not signing up for a space that you're not going to be able to afford. All students that register for housing are signing a legally binding agreement. All students are encouraged to review the published housing terms and conditions, which can be found on the RCL website. Students can access the Student Housing Gateway through the RCL website or directly at the link below. Make sure you have a backup plan. What will your group do if your first choice is no longer available when you register? Make sure you enable pop-ups in your web browser and use Firefox or Internet Explorer. The total number of apartment units that remain after each registration date will be posted on the RCL website. So the evening after the registration date is concluded, we will post on the RCL website how many apartment units remain going into the next registration day. We do that so that students will have a good idea of what the likelihood is, whether they would get into their first choice when they go to register the following day. Other thing that's very important is to make sure your designated roommate has each student's roommate PIN and RMS ID number so that they're able to register the whole group for the apartment spaces.